There's nobody talking in our channel.
I know. Bums.
All right, so we're live now.
We are live.
Yeah, that's what it says. It says we're on air.
I know, and we're being appropriate now.
Being broadcast across the intertrons.
The intertubes. And the intertrons.
Intertron better than intertubes.
Why did you just say it like a caveman? Intertron better.
Intertron better. Intertubes. I don't know. I just feel like the intertubes thing is really played out.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I can't do it. See, you could have done that to me, and it would have worked. And I can't do the dry, subtle thing.
You can. I mean, you can try. No one's stopping you.
No, I just did, and it bombed. You didn't even know I tried. That's how bad it bombed.
It's all right, man. It's okay.
It's not all right.
Whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Okay. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah. I guess I should mute my phone. That'd probably be a good idea to do.
Yeah, you should. You totally should. You totally should. I think mine.
We're totally professional tonight, so.
I know.
Hope
so am I? All right. I'm gonna try not to say anything bad or blasphemous or anything.
That's good. Let's try to keep it. I don't know what the word is, but we'll keep it.
Keep it R.
Keep it rated R. All right. Okay.
We've never have really had it PG, or at least not when I talk.
That's probably true. All right, so I think we're gonna kick this thing off for real. Welcome to the Loosely Coupled Podcast, episode 19. Tonight we are talking about how we get things done, or how we get stuff done. We'll go with that. I am your co-host Jeff, and this is Matt. Matt, how is it going tonight, my friend?
Oh, it's going wonderfully. It's going wonderfully. I'm excited about this show because I think I know for me productivity and organization and stuff hasn't always been easy. So I'm kind of and I have you pegged as like a super organized guy. You've claimed before that you're not, but I've always had you pegged that way. So I'm interested to hear some things that you're going to say and kind of see if I can.
I mean,
glean some of them.
I feel like I'm just the right amount of organized. Not like super organized, but
you know when we record.
Yeah.
If you have that stuff down.
Yeah, I suppose.
We've done 19 of these. I think last time was the first time I never had to ask what time we were actually recording at.
Well, yeah, that's true. That is true. But yeah. So I thought this would be a fun one, just because there's a lot of, or at least I personally have gone through a lot of different things, like just trying to figure out how I can be productive, and when I say productive, I don't just mean being able to get things out, because I mean obviously that's the definition, but I also mean productive while still like sane. Well, as sane as I can be, but
yeah, I mean
not or I've got this huge wall of tasks, like that would really stress me out. So I've tried to adopt things that will just help me get through it without too much process, but just enough process so that I kind of know what I'm doing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Which it probably doesn't, but.
Well, I mean, it makes as much sense as any process, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, and I do like to be agile with my methodology, so. I know you do too, Matt. You were telling me before the show that you're all about the agility, man.
Always.
So,
that's my favorite thing.
So when I was thinking about how to approach this particular topic, I was like, I know I wrote a blog post about this. I remember doing it. So I went digging through my own blog, which whatever, and I got all the way back to 2011, and I had a post that I called the stupid simple productivity tools or something like that.
Mastership.
And I read through it, and a lot of it has, or some of it has changed, but a lot of it's kind of the same. So I I kind of found something that worked for me a while ago and just
Mm-hmm.
tweaked it a little bit um, over the years. But it kind of stems from two things. I read Getting Things Done, like the canonical book or whatever, and I don't know. I don't think that I applied a whole bunch of it out of that book, or a bunch of stuff out of that book, but I did take some ideas, and then I read about and learned about the Pomodoro technique, and adopted that as my thing, or as my mechanism. But that's also changed a little bit over time. So I kind of wanted to talk about that. But
Okay.
before I get into it, Matt,
Mm.
how do you feel about how you get things done today?
Um. So I've today. I mean, I feel pretty good about it. I feel like. Um. I mean, a lot of it is kind of how my job and how the company is set up.
Mm-hmm.
Um. I don't. It's not something I have to pay um, super close attention to like throughout the day. Like generally, it's if I'm working on tickets, we have a ticketing system. They're all assigned to me, and the process for getting them done and over to testing is really, really pretty straightforward. So, on any given day, if that's what I'm doing, I can come in and I can just blow through a list of tickets and get them done. If I'm on a new project, which like I am now,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's almost even easier because we don't really put the new stuff into tickets. And we use our ticketing system mostly just for defects um, and features on existing projects. You don't really like plan a new project out and put tasks in, um, but it's all pretty much um, you know the business requirements get worked out above me, and when I get it, it's basically like hey, we're doing this Angular front end with maybe a Node back end, and here's some views that we need to build, and we're going to be consuming a client's API, but it's not ready yet. So I can start kind of piecing the whole entire app together,
Mm-hmm.
mocking data in there, and then when the API comes in, hooking it all up. So I feel like now I have a really good grip, and I can just kind of implicitly either know what to do or have a very easy list of kind of what to do.
Yep.
But in the past, it's been different. It's been I've never felt good about my ability to be organized and get things done. Like now they just kind of happen to be the same kind of crazy that I am, and so it works.
I can see that. And I think one of the most interesting things to me uh, about our job, or what we do in as software developers, is there's such a wide range of factors that play into like how we as individuals get stuff done.
Uh-huh.
Like I've worked at places kind of like what you're talking about, where you know somebody else would go through a bunch of things and like figure out what needs to be done, and then kind of just put them in there, highly detailed, so it's a task list more than anything.
Right.
And then I've also worked at places where I was given a thing that says you're going to build this application, and that's the only information I got
Build
was
it.
the name of the application, and then I had to figure everything out from there. So obviously my techniques for what I was doing changed because of that. And I
Sure.
think that's the thing to keep in mind is I can describe what works for me today, but
Yeah.
it's heavily dependent on the environment that I'm in for the
Yep.
most part. There's a certain point where I've tried over the years to take my current way of doing things has evolved to a point where I just know from one place I can start applying my process to it to
Mhm.
get to a particular story or a
Mhm.
task. So, and I think I've talked about this before, but right now what I work off of for pretty much everything is I've got a whiteboard on my wall that I've put sections into. It's kind of Kanban style, but I fill up one side of it, like the left side of it, is filled up with Post-it notes that are my backlog. So these are things that I know I'm going to do within the near foreseeable future. It's about 2 weeks right now is how much space I have on that board. But so about 2 weeks, things that I know I'm going to do. And then as I get to things, I move them through this process where I've got, this is stuff that I'm doing next. So like this is the priority order of things that I'm going to do. And then I've got things I'm currently working on, so work in progress items. Then I've got review up there, which is mainly for work things. So I've actually got 2 boards, one for my personal stuff and one for my work stuff. But review is like for things that aren't finished, like they're not completed because they require some intervention by me or by somebody else. Usually it's a code review or there's something preventing it from being pushed out to production or whatever. And then finally the done column is where I put everything in. That's like the biggest section that I have because I try to move things through quickly.
Okay.
And that helps me. Like I keep things color coded, of course, but that helps me.
Yeah, naturally.
Well, I mean, think about it. So like I can look up at my board at any given time and know that for work, the blue ones represent features that I need to do. And then the gray ones represent like administrative things I need to do, and then dark gray, like they've got different colors for different things. So I can keep track of like bugs that I'm doing or bugs that I'm working on and priorities and sizes and that type of stuff. So I don't know, it's important to me. But a lot of people question me because it's analog, right? Because it's a physical, like I have literal Post-it notes that I use.
Yeah.
Why don't you use Trello? Why use something else? And I do have a Trello board, and then of course at work we use a tracker, so that's everything kind of comes out of those.
You just like it sounds like you're just like you have all these things. It's hilarious.
Things, but so I've got a Trello board where I keep all my personal stuff, but there's the Trello board I can ignore very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can just kind of close out of the window and not open it. I don't necessarily have to update it, especially not my personal one, because who's going to come check on it?
Right. Your wife, maybe. Did you guys have like a family one?
I
do the dishes, mow the lawn, stuff like that.
So, truth be told, a few years ago, I actually had a local install of Jira and Confluence and everything running that I was using for that stuff. But interestingly enough, my wife didn't really care for it. So.
Yeah, I don't know why she wouldn't want to do that.
I thought it was a good idea.
No, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. So she doesn't really.
I just did it.
I know Matt Frost is trying to. He's telling me where to go. You've got this dry sense of humor, and I can never tell, like, if you're actually talking about something that you're really doing or thinking, or if you're just like making fun of somebody or like digging. And so now he's trying to do that to me, which is.
I think it's so funny because I just assume everything you say is trolling somebody.
That's fine. You keep doing that, Matt. Everyone else, occasionally I'm serious, like 10% of the time at least.
8.
9.5.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so I do keep boards, but like I said, I could totally ignore them. I don't need to pay attention to them. We have one for Loosely Coupled where we keep ideas of things and a list of stuff to do.
That's true.
The only way we actually use it is if we ping each other on them.
Well, it's so weird because it doesn't give you updates. You can add a card, and if you don't mention me, then I don't check it enough.
Yep.
Then you have to be like, hey, Matt, what do you think of this?
Yeah, definitely.
And then I'm like, it's fine. And I'm like, oh, crap. Jeff Caruth, it's fine.
Yeah, so this is why I use a physical version. Because it's sitting on my wall, and there's absolutely no way I can not see it. And if I'm not doing anything, I can tell because there's nothing moved into the column. So it forces me to actually update and work on things.
Sure, makes sense.
It does.
So I got to experience a little bit of this, a couple of different things here as far as getting work done, and I suspect. I mean, you had already kind of brought it up. I suspect there's probably elements of this episode that are going to be tied kind of closely to what people seem to think Agile is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna have to deal with that, I guess,
Okay.
and I will. So, um, the Kanban or Kanban or however you say that, I think it's Kanban. Is that
I
right?
think it's Kanban. I mean, that's what I'm going with.
If you're in the South, it's Kanban.
Kanban.
Like I had the same. Like I thought it was good. Like being able to see. See, it's weird because you. I don't know. You make it sound like. I don't know. Like you make it sound kind of.
Awesome.
Well, like easy. Like you're like, oh, I do this and I have these. I have these boards and I just move stuff.
It's
And
super easy.
while I like Kanban
Mm-hmm.
more than like a Scrum type thing, I can never get it to work.
I think so.
Personally or with work or anything. Like I'm more of like a what do I need to do? Hand me a list in some sort of priority order and I'll just go down the list until I run out of things.
I think for me, the tipping point for accepting this as something that works for me was two things. First of all, when I got the actual physical board and I had the ability to take, a prioritized list that we worked in, our issue tracker or whatever, and said, these are the 12 things that I want to do in this iteration or this week period or whatever, however you're splitting up your time.
Yeah.
I could take those and then I could say, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to do today? And so I can take those items and put them on Post-it notes and then put them in my little on deck section, which this is the order that I'm going to do them. They're in here. So I just take the top one, move it over to work in progress. And so that, like, having them sitting there, like having the ability to pick through this huge long list and pull out the ones that I wanted to work on today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I kind of got from kind of like Pomodoro technique. Like you have a huge inventory of items that you want to work on. You commit to doing them and put them into Pomodoro. So I kind of adopted that as my technique.
Okay.
And then on top of that, the second thing that really clicked for me with this technique is I put limits on the three columns in the middle. So on deck, work in progress, and review, I have limits on. So there 5 things can be on deck. So I can commit to doing 5 things in the next, day or whatever period I'm using for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then work in progress, I can do 3. So I can only be working on 3 things at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And then review, I can put 4. So what that did for me was it forced me to focus on A, what I wanted to work on that day,
Right.
and B, what I was actually getting into. So if I had 3 items in there, I couldn't be like, oh, I'm bored with this, so I'm going to go pull something else out and work on it, because I had only 3 spots. And then if I let things sit in review, so I hadn't opened the PR, I hadn't got something to review it, or I hadn't pushed out to production yet, I can clog up my own pipeline by doing that. So it forces me to actually move tasks through, which that was when it really stuck to me as a useful tool, because it was like I can visually see, and obviously I can I can do whatever I want. It's a board. I can just throw away the sticky notes, but
right, which is what I would do.
Yeah, which is you don't have to work on this anymore. Just throw it away. Be like, what?
Whatever happened to that task? Oh, I threw it away.
Yeah, I tossed it in the trash.
I tossed it. Wasn't good.
But like that forced me to really think about what I was doing and actually make a plan that makes sense and is successful. And then combining that with splitting each of those tasks down into estimated Pomodoros, essentially. That really helped me as well, because then it was like I can get better because I don't do it now, and I should,
Mhm.
but I used to literally keep track, like, of Pomodoros, like textbook, buy the books, like, you know, I planned that this would take me 6 Pomodoros. It actually took me 12 or whatever. So, I would keep track of things and try to figure out, I was being interrupted by Matt on Twitter, so we got to
Which
block
never
him, right?
happens. Never
And
happens.
so I would keep track of that. I used to keep track of that, but I think I got away from that when I stopped working in an office because
Yeah.
I used to have to keep track of my interruptions because it was people most of the time. But now, if
Yeah.
I don't want to be interrupted, I can just close all the windows and, well, I guess you
Okay.
can call, but it's kind of a long trip for everyone to come bother me personally. So,
You're in Texas, so you can have the windows open all year.
no, you can't.
Yes, you can.
It's too hot. No. It's too hot and too humid. No, you can't leave the windows open.
Whatever, you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean.
Making okay, forget it. Making a figure of speech that it never gets cold.
It was cold the other day. It was like 42.
Oh my god. Shorts weather.
Yeah. So anyway,
Anyway.
I think you should try Kanban. Try my stuff.
So I kind of just thought of a name for my style.
Okay.
I call it starting right now, literally. I call it observational planning.
Okay.
Right, which is basically I'm in this chair that I'm at right now most of the day, most of my time, and it swivels. I get a whole 360 degrees out of this chair. And basically, I can swivel over and look and say, oh, garbage needs to go out. That's something I have to do today.
Mm-hmm.
I can swivel and go, oh, that table's a mess. I should probably clean that off. And so all the things that I get done are basically things that are... So, like, my living room gets taken care of the most, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here most of the time. But I don't really... I mean, even for me, like, thinking ahead and being like, okay, what do I need to do today? I'll sit down and I'll go, okay, well, I got to go to work. I'm like, maybe I could get gas, but I don't really need to, but I could. Do I need to go grocery shopping? Well, I mean, there's a few things I could probably pick up, but, it's not really worth justifying a whole trip up there. And so then I just get bored with that because, I mean, my life isn't really that exciting.
Okay.
And then I just don't do anything then. I don't even think about what I have to get done that day because I really don't have to get anything done.
So this is, according to Bo, this is reactive getting things done, is what you're describing.
Okay, that might be a better... I call it observational because if I can swivel and see it, then there's a better chance that I'll remember to do it. But, like cleaning up my house and stuff, and like upstairs and stuff. Like I just don't go upstairs until it's time to go to bed, and then when I wake up, I come straight back downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know, my room and stuff. Like I sleep in it. That's pretty much all I do in it. So it never gets vacuumed that much because I can't see it.
Well,
I can't
your
see
sunglasses on, so you can't see it.
Well, these are blacked out even. These are even darker than what you might expect. But no, but it's I don't know. It's like I don't have a good. I just don't have a good system, and maybe Kanban would work if I could. See, the hardest part for me is like the information gathering stuff. What do I actually need to do? Like I know I need to get gas when I get in the car and my gas light goes on. I go, okay, I could probably go get some gas now.
Do you want a pro tip? You should never let it get below a quarter.
Yeah, I've heard that because
Yeah.
it's all the sediments and stuff in the.
Well, not just that, but your car is much more efficient when there's less fumes. So the less you have in the, whatever. But don't ever let it get below a quarter. That's my advice.
Okay, well I do.
Well, automobile people out there.
Okay.
So don't wait until the gas light comes on, Matt. You gotta be reactive or less reactive.
Okay. So so maybe this is like maybe this can serve like as an intervention for me. Maybe you guys can all kind of help me out here. I'm gonna ask this question and it's gonna be stupid, but I don't really know like what adults do.
I don't think that's this podcast, man. I think that's a different one.
No, but like I don't know what they do.
Can you give some context to your?
Yeah, like so I have this house, right? And when I was I got married really young. I got married at like 21, and she did everything. Kind of similar to what we got going on here, where you do everything.
All right. I don't know if I like where this is going, but proceed.
But okay. Sorry, I just don't know what what I guess how to keep up a house. Like I know you gotta vacuum it and sweep it and dust it and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I think I do everything that I need to do, but I just never feel like I did it all. Like I feel so awkward. Like I cleaned the whole house, I did all the dishes, cleaned the sinks, cleaned the bathrooms, all that stuff. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I just kind of like do things, right? And so it's never planned, and I may do something stupid like clean 3/4 down here one day, and then clean a quarter upstairs, and then the next day, clean 3/4 upstairs. And what I'm saying is, this sounds like it's probably going nowhere pretty damn fast.
Bo's anticipating the question any minute now.
I don't know how to break like clean the whole house. I don't know how to break that into things and like make cards out of that and whatever little card thing you do.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I have a hard time breaking down that task.
So
prior to doing it.
What I would do, so some advice you got in the IRC channel is you should get a Roomba. In your situation,
Roomba.
It sounds like what you need to do is hire a maid service to come over, and you just watch them.
Juan always talks about that.
And then see what they do, and then you can learn from them, like how to clean a house, right? I think that's
the
easiest way. But no, so what I do or what we do around here. Obviously, the kitchen is the thing that gets used the most for us. You dirty the dishes, you clean them up, you clean the counters pretty much every day. Then.
Wait, should I be writing this down?
Yeah, you should. This has now evolved from a programming podcast
to
to house maintenance. But I treat it kind of like. So to tie it back into software, so I treat it kind of like I would any other problem. So you've got this big task that is clean your house. This is like implement feature X, right? So you have to do this big thing. So I like to break things down into smaller and smaller increments so that they're achievable. So for me, the hardest thing to clean is the bathroom. I just don't like to do it because there's so many little. Like little corners and everything. It's very obnoxious. Scrub everything with.
I thought you were going to say cubes.
But I break it down. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to clean the bathroom as a whole, but I'm going to clean the shower first, or I'm going to clean the toilet, or I'm going to clean, just the sinks area. I'm going to organize this or whatever, and then. As you get littler and littler pieces picked up and cleaned off, it's a lot easier so it's like the snowball effect. So that's how I do it. And we recently did, my dad, I designed a new headboard for our bed. And my dad put it together for me. So he came up to put it in everything. So we had to reorganize and like clean up everything in our room. So I took the opportunity to really like get everything gone. So it's, we had little, little like crates and things with just stuff in them, and like some of our drawers had just random junk. So just, one drawer at a time or one crate at a time, just go through it, find a place for it, organize it, and move it. So it's really just the same way that I do software is I do cleaning. It's,
See, I'm starting to find, to be honest, like with software even, that breaking things down into smaller tasks from an understanding standpoint doesn't work for me.
Doesn't work for you.
Like I need that, like, so it's weird. I need all that information, right? Because the big thing now is, and it was part of the whole agile, whatever, brainwashing revolution thing, whatever it was, to kind of like, all right, let's do these really small stories and let's try to get, ones and twos and threes, or, small, medium, and large, or whatever your jam is with that, guppy, tuna, whatever. And like, let's like really like break these stories apart. Like I always heard that. Let's break this down more. Let's break it down more. It's a small, and it's like, I found in so many cases when we would do that, when we'd break something we'd take something that was meaningful, and yeah, maybe it was big, like maybe it was too big for one person to say, oh, this is a 8, there was like all the context was there, and like as you stripped it down further and further and further, all the context like just disappears with it, and then you're just like, make a login form. Okay, well, I lost the context of what this whole thing is doing, and maybe a login form is simple, and maybe you don't need that much context to say, username, password field, and send it to some backend. But I think that when you get into like features that are incomplete or that requirements that have pieces missing, I don't know. I like the idea of having like relatively bigger tickets and having all the context, or as much context that would be in that ticket, as opposed to having like little ones that are like, do this thing that, because I said so. I don't like, I guess that's what I'm saying, is I don't respond well to structure and authority.
Okay.
So I like to know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing.
All right, that's fair. So let me see the question then.
Small tickets, I don't like them.
Okay, so if you got a ticket in that said, allow a user to authenticate to the system. That's your ticket. So.
Sorry, Jake asked me how many story points that login form would be.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So, how but if you got a ticket in that said allow a user to log into the site or to the app, how would you do that? Like how would you start?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't allow a user to log into the site? You'd say, no, this sucks. No, I'm not doing it.
No, I wouldn't take that story and be like, okay, I'm just going to try to do this. I would go to whoever wrote the story and be like, what the hell is this?
Okay, so let's say you get through and the context is all there, so you know why and how they want it to work. How would you do it? Would you implement it all as one big thing, or would you implement it in small pieces?
I mean, it would depend. Like, I find when I do Angular stuff with APIs that there's a certain flow to it. That I can do one piece and the pieces kind of fall in line. In some cases, like maybe a login form, yeah, I mean, I would probably just do it. I would kind of think about how it flowed and just start kind of working through it that way, and not being like, okay, I need to make a username field that has a, that's this length, and plan everything out and break everything down into. I wouldn't have like 15 tickets that were all ones to do this. I would just do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, depending on your process, I don't think anyone actually says you must have only 1 point stories.
No, but would you agree that the focus is to keep the effort points on the stories as low as possible?
Yeah. So what we use
Okay.
for my team is
I was right.
we use the Fibonacci scale,
Yeah.
and so you have, you know, a few point values. But basically, once you get up to 5 and 8, or it's logarithmic. Sorry,
Okay.
logarithmic, or is it? I don't know. Whatever. But once we get up to like 5, 5 and then 8, like once in that range, then at that point you have to question if the story is too broad. You have to question if what you're doing is much too broad, and so we would break it down. But
Okay.
you know, but to be honest, a lot of times with the way we work anyway, you may have a larger story that's going to go out. So say it's a 5-point story, and you've figured out that it can be a single story. When it goes to be released, it's not, or when it's actually being developed, it's not going to be released in one huge chunk, most likely. It'll probably be in a lot smaller chunks, and that's partly because of our environment, but partly because of also how we work. So, for example, if you want to, deploy, a change that might affect, a database, you might make one deployment that, adds the field or adds a new column or whatever, and then another deploy that's going to do something else, and then it follows it up with another deploy which removes some dead code that you no longer need. And it goes through a whole process with, you've got this thing that's going out live, it's going out constantly. So
right.
But they're all in the same ticket. They're on the same story. They're all associated with the same story. It doesn't have to be broken up into a task or like a command per story. Like that's not how we do things. So I don't think that you have to think of it like that. And that's the same thing with the way I was just talking about, like cleaning things. I would never put in there clean shower, check. I would say clean the bathroom, and then I can do that however I want. My implementation of
what if you missed the shower?
Is I did the shower, then the bathtub, then the this, then that, whatever.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, see, like for me, like with work stuff, I mean, it really is. It's the same way I kind of do a lot of things. It's just completely by feel. Like if I get something assigned to me, sometimes I'll start with like what I know the best. Like, okay, I know I can get this API started. I know I can get Slim set up and get a couple of endpoints and start, and make good progress on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I'll start with that, and I'll just go, all right, I know this pretty well. I'll start doing this. Sometimes there's a flow to the whole thing. Like the recent Angular project that I've been working on. Like I started out and so we did a node wrapper on their API, and then basically we wrote some services to interact with our wrapper, and then it fed to the controllers, and then the views either consumed or displayed the data that was coming to and from the API. And it just flowed that way. Like it for me, not that that's the right way to do an Angular project or the only way or anything like that, but for me, the logic of the steps makes a lot of difference to me. Again, I don't like to just do things because, hey, I need you to do this, and you don't need to know why or what it's for. I really get annoyed with when that happens. Like, I like to know where I'm going to see this, what this is going to do, what this is affecting, what the purpose of, even what the business purpose of it is. I try not to get too involved in meetings and stuff, but understanding the business purpose for the code that you're writing, really helps. Helps you kind of visualize and envision the end product and So I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit odd in that sense, where I'm kind of like a hippie in that sense.
No, I think that
where I'm
just
legitimate. Like, whoa, everything's groovy, man. Oh, I'm gonna do that right now.
I think that's a legitimate thing, and I think that's a skill that that I've definitely picked up over the years. But it's asking asking the why question, like really understanding the problem more so than the solution. Like a lot of times,
Right.
something comes in and it's like, we need to change the well, your example, we need to change the way the login works. It needs to do this. And so I ask why a lot. And that's just, I'm like a 2-year-old, why,
Probably
why,
you
why?
get that from your son, huh?
Yeah, why?
Dad,
But
Dad.
I found that helps because a lot of times, asking the why questions and really trying to understand the business case for, or the problem that someone's trying to solve by telling you to do something
Mhm.
gets down to a much better solution than
Yeah.
just doing whatever they wanted you to do. So I
Right.
think that's a legitimate thing to want to know the reasons. Um,
Right. Well,
and
because you have to understand the people that are giving you this stuff a lot of times aren't. I was actually just gonna say something really mean, and I caught myself. They're not technically involved in the project in the same way that you are. They don't understand the ins and outs, and a lot of times they don't even understand what they're asking. Like, oh, they want this to fly across the screen, and you're like, no, it's not. 1996. We're not having things fly across the screen.
right, they need to scroll, like a marquee.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Marquee tag.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's part of it, right? And part of asking why is like, okay, you're a salesperson and you're giving me this, technical spec. I want to make sure I understand that you're not selling me up the river with something stupid that I'm going to implement and it isn't going to work.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons you'd want to know the business case for something. Like someone could come to you
Right.
and tell you, I need this particular page um, not to show certain products. So say you're working e-commerce, like not to show products that don't have this particular flag set on them on Thursdays. And and you're like, okay, well, I mean, yes, I suppose I could do that,
Right.
but
And
why
why
you gonna do
wouldn't
that?
you?
And come to find out that flag is only set on one single product in the whole thing, and it's something that there's a special sale on Thursdays or whatever.
Right.
Just like there's some weird thing that they have, and so the solution they're trying, or the problem they're trying to get you to solve is, how do they have specials on like promotions on certain days? But the solution that they gave you is not it's not going to really work that well.
Yeah.
So finding out the business case, and of course that's an extreme example. It hopefully
Right.
will
Right.
never be that glaringly dumb when someone comes and says, "Hey, I need you to do this for me." But it is something that I think you should do a lot more of. Or I think developers in general should do a lot more saying no and asking why. Like I think that's a lot of
Yeah.
times we overcommit to doing things because we haven't
Yeah.
learned the proper use of the word no, and or I guess the proper way to say no.
Right. Well,
Don't
so
go
so
don't go home and say that, don't go to work tomorrow and just say no to everything because I told you to. Just there's a right way to say no and there's a wrong way to say no.
absolutely. And so for me, the biggest time where I dealt with this in my career was when I worked at the newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was cool. I mean, working at a newspaper gives you a lot of challenges. It's pretty neat, right? In some ways. Um,
That was very convincing.
I enjoyed some of the things I got to do with the newspaper when I worked there.
All right.
But
Cool.
once I moved, so I started out in the production department, and I would actually write code that would interact with the presses and stuff, and it would be more focused on like press room productivity and things like that, not
Mm-hmm.
the editorial side. And then my coworker Yuri moved on from where he was at. He was in the media, in the newsroom. He moved, I think, to the Washington Post or something like that while I was still there. And so they gave me his job down in the newsroom. And the salespeople, oh my goodness! I mean, this is where I was kind of the first time I was like, no, I'm not doing that until you give me an actual description of what. Because the salespeople would always come in, and they're salespeople at a newspaper, right? Which don't make money, so you can imagine how on edge and frustrated and running around they are all the time, and they're buzzing around and they're dropping stuff off on your desk, and you're like, what is this? I can't even I literally can't even, like, customer needs web page. Like a Bieber fan page? What do they want? Right? And so you'd have to go track all these people down and go, this doesn't mean anything. Customer needs web page doesn't mean shit to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It means nothing. And then you have to sit there. You spend all your time tracking them down. Then you spend all your time sitting with them. And then they're like, well, it's not really a web page. They need a box ad on the sports. You're like, it's not even the same thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going back through my horrors and tribulations at the newspaper here. But no, so that's where I really built up an intolerance for, like, a lack of information. I think, kind of as I worked through these jobs, I was there, and then I was in Chicago, and then I was working for Synacor, and now I'm kind of here. And the one thing that's improved a lot, and I think it's from that initial newspaper experience, is the whole just communication standpoint. Like, not being afraid to say, hey, you know what, I'm not done. I know you need to know where I am, and I'm not done, so let's figure out if we need to reset expectations or if I need to work some extra hours. And so I think for me, like, that type of thing, like, I'm way more comfortable now when somebody gives me something I don't understand. And, like, when you switch jobs, it's more like you don't understand because you just don't know the business side of it yet. But like in my current job, that's what it's been. I'm like, this is a legitimate ticket. I just don't know what it means, kind of thing. But yeah, so I've tried to never be shy about being like, hey, I need something else here. I need some help with this because I don't know what this is. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I just don't like to decompose things. I don't like to have things decomposed for me.
Yeah, and I think
I'd
that's
rather take it and do it
valid.
myself. Does that make sense to me? I do it. I'm like, y'all do circles. I do, like, zigzags. It's just how it is.
I could see that. I totally agree with you. I don't like having things decomposed for me either. That's why in our process at work, we're all kind of involved in the process of deconstructing things, but it's really up to whoever's implementing the specific story how it actually gets accomplished.
Right.
So, like, in general, obviously you're going to mentally deconstruct things on your own. So you're reading a particular story that says to add some new feature, add some new service, whatever. You're going to mentally deconstruct it and say, how would I do that, and about how long would it take? So, how much weight do I give to this particular story, or how many story points is it worth? And then, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to break down exactly the same for every person. So it doesn't really matter until you're the person working on it, right?
Right.
Ultimately, I think that's the better way to do it. If you're trying to, or I've found at least in my career that trying to have a bunch of stories that are very prescriptive of what you should do, or they're like, you must do this thing and this thing only, that doesn't really help me a lot because it's I
You're like, no.
Yeah, I'm like, why? The same problem that you have with it, I have with it. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like that. No, that doesn't make any sense.
Maybe that's not the best way to do it, right?
I like to have things that are more descriptive or telling me what needs to be solved, what needs to be resolved, because I feel like that leads to, and here's the hippie agile side, but that leads to conversations and discussions around whatever it is,
Gotta have that.
which makes an understanding possible or achievable, as opposed to something that's like, you should do this, and then the answer is no, so you're at an impasse at that point. So no one's gonna, like, two people said, here's what you should do, and this person said, I'm not doing that, and both of them probably have different ideas of what it was, or why that was supposed to be done. So I tend to favor things that are written in a way that just says, here's a problem, this should be solved, and then go from there, like flesh it out from there.
Right. Well, and I think too, one of the things that I think a lot of places struggle with, especially more places that do client work, I'm sure the products don't deal with this as much, though I'm sure they probably do more than I would think, is, and it's insane the way that this works, but it's been like this pretty much everywhere. Like, another company will hire you to do something for them, right? An application for them, right? And assuming you're a bigger company, you've got designers, and you've got programmers, and you've got project managers, and you've got big boss people and all that kind of stuff, right? And you pay your designers to come up with good designs, right? That's their job. And hopefully, if they've been doing it in the web world for a while, they usability and UX and UI and all that kind of stuff is part of that. And it's insane to me how other businesses, they'll hire us, and this is more, I guess, kind of more relevant to when I worked in Chicago. They would hire us, and then they would take everything out of our hands. Like they would hire us, and they would be like, okay, you guys have the expertise and the experience and the knowledge and the talent to execute this perfectly. Now here is exactly what we want to do, and you better not deviate from this at all. And that's insane to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of those rigid, strictly defined tickets come from. But I also think, like, there's been opportunities where I'm like, you know what, this is stupid. I'm not doing it this way. There's no way that they want it this way. And if I'm wrong, then you can take the time out of my paycheck. And I've never actually said that. But you look at something, and you go, this is clearly derpy here. There's no way that this is the way that they want it. And so you're like, you know what, I bet you it'd look better if it was presented like this, or if it looked like this, right? And then you take it to the client before before it's like done. But when you have a concept, you say, hey, I was looking at your thing and this kind of sucked. You would phrase it more with more tact.
Hopefully.
I kind of saw this pattern in your data, and I thought maybe it'd be better presented like this, and you show it to them, right? And they like it, and like that's the kind of jam, like, for like that I like to have, like, I don't know, I like to have the big picture, and when projects are managed well, and you get good, it's a whole thing. When you get good clients and projects are managed well, and they can they're always going to micromanage them a little bit because they're paying a lot of money for them. They're going to keep an eye on it and make sure it's going in the direction that they want. But when you can, like, use your expertise and you have the flexibility to kind of step outside of their design even just a little bit and suggest that something might be better, serve their users better or whatever, like, that's where kind of the whole freedom and the creative process and, like, the things that I love about writing code and writing software come from.
Okay.
It's like when I go to a tattoo artist, I'm not going to draw him literally anything because I can't draw. And if I was like, no, I want this, if I drew something and I was like, no, I want this exactly the way that I drew it, yes, that's a person, then I'm stupid because my tattoo artist is an artist. And it's way easier for me to come to him and say, hey, you know what, I'd like to get this person. Right? They know what that person is. and they know how they would approach that person by giving them my representation of this person and saying, do this, giving them a little bit of creative. And I think anytime you're in a creative field or a creative industry or on a creative thing, like having that flexibility and that freedom is what makes your job fun.
Yeah, which interestingly we talked about some of what you're going on and on about right now.
I rambled there, didn't I?
We talked about that in the Dev Book Club that I organize. I'm going to plug it right here. But we're going over Clean Code by Robert Martin, and in the first chapter he talked about the idea of code as art and the idea of we talked a little bit about us being are we artists, are we craftsmen,
artisans,
and then are we are we professionals, and like how do you approach this type of situation in other professions. And I think Adam Culp he used the classic example of of you wouldn't go to your surgeon and say, I don't want you to wash your hands before performing surgery on me because whatever your reason, you just walk into them and say,
I have a dirty hand fetish.
Yeah, well, don't give so in our terms, in the ticket don't say wash your hands first, or say don't wash your hands, and just put that in as a ticket. Do not wash your hands before performing surgery on me. And he's like, you wouldn't tell another professional that you do it, but people will come to developers and they'll tell you exactly how to do something the wrong way and expect that you're going to do it. So it is our job as professionals to make sure that we're defending against that particular problem.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're in a position to do it, even if you're not, if something is clearly wrong to you, that's where you're what I find in, and maybe not so much anymore, but when I first got started in the industry, it was very intimidating for a lot of other people outside of the industry, especially being a young guy, which I'm not any longer, but I was at the time, once upon a time. And a lot of the older guys and even a lot of the older women, didn't take too kindly to young kids coming in with all these fancy computer skills. They're still screenshotting stuff and then putting it in a Word document and dragging it all out of proportion and stuff. I totally lost my train of thought.
All right.
What was I talking about?
It's actually a good transition now that you lost your train of thought.
I do that sometimes.
I wanted to talk a little bit about work schedules. So.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, you recently started an experiment. Why don't you tell us about that?
I did, yeah. So the experiment kind of came from this idea of a maker's schedule versus a manager's schedule, right? And the difference being a manager's schedule is divided up into blocks, and something happens in all those blocks, and they have to go to their meetings and do their things and whatever. And it's very linear and it's very organized and timely. And where people that are creative or doing creative things or writing code or designing things, their mind doesn't always work that way, and their motivation and their passion doesn't always follow a block schedule of 9 to 5. Some people work really well in the morning and really well late at night, and breaking up their so the idea was instead of forcing all of our creative people to be on a manager's schedule, right, in a linear block schedule, we'll start letting people have a little bit of flexibility and creativity with their work hours. So for me, 1 to 3 in the afternoon, I'm useless on the computer. Right after lunch, the coffee's probably
just in those times.
Sometimes it's 1 to 2:30. Yeah, jerk.
Carry on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Ask me about my experiment and tease me.
That's what I do, man.
I know. No, so generally speaking, from 1 to 3, I don't get a whole lot done. My motivation isn't there, and I reason that it's because it's right after lunch and the coffee's worn off. It's just a dead part of the day for me. So I decided in my experiment that I'm not going to work then.
Mhm.
Like I'm just going to be like, yeah, 1 to 3, just keep me away from the keyboard. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to watch BoJack Horseman on Netflix, or I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to, eat an entire box of, Girl Scout cookies or something.
Yeah, those are all basically the same thing. So yeah,
Yeah, they're all rejuvenating. Um, so it's weird because I have a weird schedule with my kids, where they'll come over 2 nights a week. And so it's like on those nights I either have to push hours really early or I have to push them back after they go to bed. So what I generally try to do is shoot for like a work from 7 to 1. I tend to be productive in the morning, especially before like everybody gets in, and I can kind of just sit down and work for really a good 3 hours before people really get rolling because the rest of my coworkers are farther west in different time zones. So I'm the first one up, and I have from 7 to 10 basically before people start rolling in and actually demanding things of me or asking things of me. And I get left alone pretty much all the time anyway, so it's not a big deal. Then I can kind of work for 3 hours with everybody, right? Mm-hmm. By the time I hit 1 o'clock, they're all going to lunch because it's noon there. Ben's probably just waking up because it's 9 or 10 by him. Actually, I think I don't know when Ben wakes up, but I know he comes in around 1 my time every day. So he gets to not he gets to not get bothered by me for 2 hours while I'm watching Three's Company. And then I'll come back and work from like 3 to 5.
Yeah.
And finish out the day, and then I'm there and I can ask all my stupid questions, and Ben can help me, and if I need to stick around a little bit after that, I can do that if I need to come back at 9 o'clock. So I don't really have work hours. It's kind of like, I can go from a day to day and have, certain hours one day. Maybe I want to sleep in and I'll work 9. There have been days where I've just worked a straight 9 to 5. It hasn't all been split up, but for any given day, but based on what I've got going on, I can be flexible, and it keeps me. I don't mind working a 9 to 5 if I know it's because, I'm taking the kids out of town that night or something. When there's a good reason behind it, working a 9 to 5, you can power through that middle part of the day. But when you just work a 9 to 5 because that's just what you do, again, it comes back to the whole understanding. Like, why am I trying to do this when I really just don't want to right now?
Yeah. I get it. Like I've had different work schedules, through different jobs. Like I used to, pre having a child, I used to work, or I used to try to work like later in the day, and then, I'd come in around 9:30 or so, and do about 15 minutes of actual work, and then by 6 p.m. I would leave. But so I used to have a schedule like that, and then now working for a company who's predominantly like most everybody is in San Francisco. So they come in around like noon my time is when people are actually awake and present and everything.
Right.
The problem that I found is that's also when they want to schedule all the meetings and everything.
Yeah.
They want to, they're like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. It's a perfect time for a meeting. I'm like, well, that's 12 o'clock for me. So it kind of killed. I used to go to lunch with friends a lot, and some of them were at jobs where they could only go from like 12 to 1 or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, I was like, well, sorry, I can't come to that anymore. But
so now you lost all your friends.
Yeah, now I have no friends. I'm a sad man. But
That's
I
right,
found now that I work kind of similarly to what you were describing, and that's why I was interested to hear how it's going for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But you know, I drop my kid off at daycare in the morning, and then I'm home by like 7:50 from that.
Right.
So then I'll do some work, you know, from like 8 to around 10 my time or so, then take a little break, and then I'm back at it at like 11:30. So I have like some time for breakfast, lunch. I do a different eating schedule than most humans do, but we can talk about
Are
it
you on
some
the
other time.
16-hour thing?
Yeah, so I'm doing this thing called intermittent fasting. If you've never heard of it, basically you have an
If
eating
you
window
never heard
that's
of it, you're
short.
not a nerd.
You're not a huge nerd, but you basically have a shorter eating window than most normal people. They're like, I eat breakfast and I wake up and I go eat dinner right before I go to sleep. But I I basically eat from really like 11:30 to around 6 to 7. Like just kind of depends on the
Like
day.
just nonstop, or
No, I generally eat. I,
like
I
a
eat like
trough?
I eat 3 meals, and they're all in that window. So I break down a day's worth of calories into three segments, and then just kind of eat them in that window. So generally, I eat around like 11, and then around like 3, and then usually around like 5:30 or 6, depending on when my kid gets home. My wife and my
Hmm.
kid get home, and we figure out dinner. But so I adjusted my work schedule to accommodate that, plus dealing with people wanting to have meetings from noon to about 3 my time. Like
Hmm.
it's I've got a 30-minute meeting here and a hour meeting here, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I adopted a very similar schedule, and it works out well. Now
Yeah.
another thing along those lines, since I'm mentioning meetings,
Hmm.
um, it's I found that it's impossible to get any work done when you have meetings.
Yeah.
And I think most people have figured that out by now.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm surprised you seem a little slow to the game on that.
no, but so what I found that works for me is I
Hmm.
actually schedule blocks of time that I call GSD, and
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I'm looking at my nerd Kanban board. I
Hmm.
say, okay, I've got to do these things. I know that it's going to require a lot of significant concentration. So
Hmm.
I will block out time on my calendar and say, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. is a GSD block for this thing or this feature or whatever. And it was funny because when we hired our new vice president of engineering, one of the first things he asked me was, I was looking at your calendar trying to schedule a meeting, and I noticed you have a bunch of blocks that say GSD. What are those for? And I said, oh, that stands for getting shit done, and those are no meeting blocks. You cannot schedule meetings during my GSD blocks. So I learned to like space them out. And what I did for my team and communication and everything, I also scheduled office hours. So like I had GSD blocks littered throughout my calendar, and then I had a recurring office hours meeting, which I think I started out 5 days a week, and then I got it down to like 2, where I would just have this little period of time where I would open up a Hangout, and everyone had the invite, so they could jump in the Hangout if they wanted to, and then they can ask me questions on the Hangout, and I can work when people aren't asking me questions.
So can I interject?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you want?
No, nothing good.
No. No. Carry on.
I was just gonna say, when you said office hours, my first thought was that seems really pretentious.
Yes. It is very pretentious. I
Okay.
I agree,
Okay.
but it turned out to work out very well for not only me but other people as well. Because
Mm.
if you've got, say, you have 3 people that want to ask you a question about a specific project, and it's related to something you're working on right now, so they're probably all going to ask you on Tuesday. Say you have
Individually.
office hours at Tuesday at 1 p.m. Right?
Okay.
They all come and they all jump in the Hangout at relatively the same time, and so one of them asks you the question, and then you answer it, and in answering it, you answer the other people's questions too. Now instead of having 3 ad hoc 10 to 15 minute conversations littered throughout one week, I had one conversation with 3 people in a 30-minute block that I previously scheduled, and I get it all done right there. Super efficient. So you can call it pretentious if you want.
But then you have to drink like this.
Why? Why do I have to drink like that? Because I have office hours.
Because that's how people with office hours drink shit.
I'm just saying this is what works for me. This episode is called How We Work, man.
Okay, sorry, I'm not trying to jack your flow here.
You're judging, but
yeah, I'm not trying to.
I found that scheduling things, or defensive scheduling, works out very well. So that's kind of how I've evolved my process so that I can actually get work done.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
What's your meeting strategy?
Avoid them at all costs.
And how does that work?
It depends. Where I'm at now is probably the least amount of meetings I've ever had to go to in my life, so it's pretty awesome.
That's good.
And the recurring ones you can plan for, right? I don't mind the recurring ones nearly as much as like that. Oh, hey, we're having a meeting, and yeah, that happens sometimes. But no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, your office. I understand the practicality of your office hour thing. When I worked in Chicago, we used to have like a 2-hour, what we called 2-hour developers meeting maybe it was an hour. I forget.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever really went to it. It was optional, but it was kind of like we would all bring our lunches in, and all the developers kind of be in the same room at the same time. And they're supposed to open up dialogue about what people were working on and give people a little bit more direct link to ask questions and do things because they wouldn't have to go up to someone's desk and interrupt them. So I mean, the concept, and granted that was just like an hour or an hour and a half or whatever it was a week.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see the practicality of that, I think. But I think too a lot of it depends on because like I'm trying to imagine how like if I could do that and like at this point I don't think I would even need to.
Yeah, I think it entirely
depends on what your organization is like.
Yeah, it depends on what your organization is like and what particular type of meeting you're trying to deal with, or what particular type of time suck you're trying to deal with. For me, it was having a bunch of conversations in kind of the planning state, as opposed to dealing with very specific implementation things that I was trying to curb. So having an opportunity for long-term planning conversations to happen on terms that wouldn't interrupt me from other things, that was something I needed to figure out. So that's where I came up with the office hours idea.
No, that's good. I mean, that's really practical. And yeah, I mean, I guess anymore I just don't have people coming into my, coming to me asking me for a whole lot of stuff these days, but, which is fine. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Like for me now, like most of the meetings that I'm in now are recurring, so I know where they're at every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I know which ones I have to be at and which ones, on occasion I can either keep working or just check out altogether,
Yeah.
So like for me now, it's not bad. But in my other kind of consulting gigs back in Chicago and even at Cinecor a bit, it was like these surprise monster meetings, that would end up being scheduled for like an hour and would go longer. And you'd have to like move conference rooms because you'd get kicked out because somebody else had booked it at 2 and you were still in there. And then everybody would get, the organizers would get all embarrassed because they can't wrap up a meeting in an hour. And just general stuff like that. And and
I think that's typical. I think that's a lot of places.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like now, if I had to do it, if I had a lot of meetings now, or if I get to a place, and it very well could happen that I might. I mean, I tend to like where I'm at now. I'm just kind of grooving in only on meetings that I really need to be in, which is awesome. But if I get to a place where that changes, and I find myself in more meetings, I'm definitely going to need to figure out a way to get continue to get things done. Because I know for me, a meeting kills about an hour of additional time for me.
Yeah.
Right, so it's going to kill about a half hour leading up to it, while I review anything that I need to review for the meeting, or look at any code or any examples or demos or anything that I need to actually have prepared. So there's a half hour there, and then when I get back, my mind goes very, very quickly in meetings. So it generally takes me about a half hour to kind of like get uncomatose.
Yeah.
And come back to reality and what I want to do, what I need to do. So that's why, like for me, meetings are just, if it's an hour meeting, that's a quarter of my day's gone.
Yeah. I definitely have been in that situation before, and something that I'm trying to work on personally, and then also within the team on the meeting front is, publishing, scheduling, whatever, an agenda, like scheduling the idea of not like a bulleted list or anything, but you have a meeting, it's got a title that's like, we're going to discuss feature X or whatever. Put in the notes, or in the detail section, put what it is that people should prepare, or like where they can reference whatever your problem is, and then put what you are hoping or what you're expecting to take out of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to make it a personal goal to decline any meeting that doesn't have that information in it, because I feel like a lot of times meetings are kind of scheduled in reactionary mode. So it's like, I don't understand this thing, therefore I'm going to call a meeting and I want to get as many people involved, like get all these ideas on the table. That's good, but it's also very disruptive. So I'm trying to force the hand of, people should have a clear reason for calling the meeting, and they should be able to tell you what is expected to be gained from having it. And if they can't articulate what that is, don't schedule a meeting until you can.
You don't have a meeting, right?
Yeah, there's no point in gathering.
There's no restraint in that, though. That's like Agile, in the sense that everybody has to totally agree to do that, or else it totally falls apart.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one person's like, screw you, we're having a meeting and you don't need to know why, and I'm higher than you, so you're coming. You're marked as required.
Marked as required. Well, if you're required, then they can't have a quorum without you. So the chairman's going to have to dismiss the meeting, man.
That's not how it works. I think
how it works.
I think they look for you, and I think they wait, and I think they wait until you show up to start. Like you show up, you're like, if I show up a half hour late, I'll get there, like just for the parts that I need, and then I can leave. And then you show up, and they're like, "Oh, Jeff, we've been expecting you. Okay, we're going to start the meeting now."
Yeah, that is generally how it works. Yeah.
Right. I mean, half hour might be a little drastic, but you're like, "Oh, good, you're 15 minutes late. Okay, well, we can start now. We're not that far behind. We've just been catching up, shooting the shit."
Breeze, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, as a company, what we, Google Calendar has a little option that you can enable quote unquote speedy meetings. Which come to find out, it doesn't actually make your meetings any faster.
No, imagine that. Google hasn't figured that out, huh?
They haven't figured out how to do that yet. But basically, what it does is it defaults to you're adding a calendar entry. So what would have been a 30-minute meeting is now a 25-minute meeting, and what would have been an hour is now 50 minutes instead. And it seems like not that big of a deal.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think it did help. Like when we first moved from 30-minute blocks to essentially 25-minute blocks, it did help initially, because it was like you've got this running calendar, and especially for us, since we've got remote people, so we've got like the meeting is through a Hangout. So when the next meeting is going to start, or when your meeting is over, there's a little pop-up, and it clicks, says your meeting is over. So it's like it really helps people really focus on getting through things. And then for a lot of things, we also started incorporating timers into discussions. So like, and I don't want to get too agile on you, Matt, but when we have retros and such, there's a timer that's for different things at different times. But suppose there's like a 3-minute timer. So you're discussing something, timer set for 3 minutes. If you haven't finished whatever you're talking about in that 3 minutes, you take it, you push it off until later. Like you go have the conversation outside of the meeting, so you're not wasting.
Parking lot it.
Yeah, you put it in the parking lot, exactly.
I know the terms, dude. I know.
Which works well. I think you could hate on Agile all you want to,
I will.
But putting rules around that type of stuff, I think, helps.
Yeah, but you're talking rules to a guy that doesn't like rules. I'm a rebel. Yeah, well, I'm a rebel until they're feeding me or something. And I'm like, what time's lunch?
Yeah. It says on the schedule lunch is at noon.
Lunch was supposed to be at noon. I need to speak to your manager. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, I don't know. Because I got really excited about Agile and about all this kind of namby-pamby stuff when it was described to me and there was like no, like, you get to work on your own and you do, like, you grab your own tickets and you do them, and all of the sum of your parts make up the whole, and all this hippy dippy stuff.
Who are you talking to?
I don't know. Might have been Cheech Marin. No. No, but like I'm romanticizing it a little bit on how it was told. It was like everybody agrees. There's agreements on the size of the tickets and how many mythical story points they might be, and it was all very like Hobbit sounding to me. And then when you do it, you're like, and you start actually going through the flow, you're like, this is a shittier version of what we were already doing. Like somehow we took this really shitty way that we do things and we made it somehow shittier.
Okay.
And that's my experience with Agile. Like now we can do waterfall, but with more meetings. So we have a meeting every day where we talk about impediments, which is the only time in the day that you'll ever use that word. Yeah. And you're trying to think of another use for impediment. You're like, I guess that'd be about it.
I'm sure I could come up with something, but I understand your point.
So now you're doing the same shit with more meetings, because then you talk about that was my least favorite thing by far. I love the retrospectives because I love being honest and I love just saying what's on my mind. Coworkers and people like that don't always appreciate hearing it, but you would do this. Yeah, I know. You would do this like really shitty process. Again, somehow shittier, somehow. And then you would like trick yourself into thinking that it was actually working. And then you would talk about how awesome you were doing at it. And everyone was sitting there pretending it wasn't shittier, but it was. It was just different shitty, so they didn't complain. And I used the word shitty like 8 times in a row here.
Yeah, it's okay. This is an explicit version now, I guess. But
I guess so. Sorry if there's any kids listening. Kids.
Yeah. Kids, they have meeting problems. They're probably listening.
Kids are like, yeah, I hear you, dude. I hear you. That is shitty.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like something that we do, or something that we've started doing where I work, we have a recurring. They're calling it essentially a process retro. Like you could kind of call it that, but it's a recurring retro where we're talking about like what we, how we're working and like how our current processes are working for us to kind of refine them a little bit. So what we do for retros is everybody comes in with 3 good things, 3 bad things, and or two good things, 2 bad things, and 2 things that were just meh. and you write them all on the board, and then you go through and you have, I think it's like 2 minutes to explain each item that everyone put up there, or whatever it is. Like there's a certain time limit. I don't know the exact numbers, but you got like one sentence essentially per item to explain what you meant, and then everyone gets 5 total votes, and you can go through and put them on anything you want. So you could put 5 things on, one of the things that you added up there, or you could put one on 5 different things on the board, or whatever you want to do. And then you go through and we talk about them in order of points. So, whichever one got the highest number, that's what we talk about. And then each of those things that needs some adjustment or whatever, we make an action item that gets summarized and sent out, and then we actually follow through with it.
Do you actually follow through with it?
Yeah, we do. Okay. Which is awesome. But
that is awesome.
So that works for us. So like that's one way that we found to make sure that we're staying on top of the process, so that it's working for us. But we're also very cautious of constant change in process, because we've found through experience that reacting too much to something that came out of a retro on a 2-week window will cause a lot more turmoil as time goes on.
Yeah.
And we got to the point a while ago where we actually we've got a few monitors around the office that have Gecko boards on them showing different things, and we made a little
burn downs. You have burn downs?
No. We made a little widget on there that said days since last process change, and it was a constant 0, just because we were making the point that we're changing process too much. So we had that thing sitting there saying every time it's been 0 days since we last changed the process, and then we got to the point where we were not changing it because we figured out that was causing us problems, and it kind of balanced out. Then we could go through and make changes based on feedback that we see recurring through retros, as opposed to, this 2 weeks you had a problem with this, so let's stop that, and then the next 2 weeks you got a different problem that reverses that decision. So then you do it again, and you end up with you're never actually doing anything. Right. You're spending all your time going back and forth between 2 ideas.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I mean, I get it. I mean, I like the idea of sitting around and kicking around what's not working, and that process that you described with the voting and stuff is very similar to to things that I've done in the past. And my biggest complaint was that the action items and the things that we all agreed on a team, there was never any follow through on.
Yeah, and I think that's probably common.
Report Agile's broken. That's how that works. No, I totally know and understand and agree that it's the Agile's not really the problem. It's the horror-awful implementations of it.
Yeah.
That make my skin crawl when I hear it.
I've actually got something coming that I think you'll enjoy.
Oh.
I registered
a cake?
Sorry, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I'm not going to announce it right now. But I've got something related to this particular problem, which is going to be coming out soon. So, and it's not a cake.
Is it an Agile cake?
It is an Agile cake. It's an Agile cookie cake. I hope you're prepared.
Is it cut into sizes that are different widths based on a Fibonacci sequence?
No, everyone had to agree on the number of magical, mythical story points that cookie was worth.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so
that's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, that's my fault.
Do you have any other comments about how you get things done?
I mean, my biggest thing that I've kind of learned is it's this weird balance. Like, what works for you, may not work for me. right? Like entirely. Like if I just took your process and started doing it, there's a chance it might work for me, but there's a chance that
Yep.
we're just wired different, and that wouldn't work the same way for me as it would for you. But I do think that there's things that maybe that you do in your process or that other people do in their processes that you can pick and kind of choose from, and things that maybe work best with your work ethic and personality type and things like that. Like I could lift some ideas out of your process without being like, I've got color coded, nerd cards to tell me everything. Like you could just look at the board and know what you have to do based on like the colors and where they're at and stuff, right? And I'm just not that organized. I would like run out of a color and then just use it for something else and screw everything up. But I think what's important is to do what makes you the most productive, right? Figure out, ask enough questions and be honest enough with yourself to find the shortcomings in your day or in your process or in whatever, and look for active ways to improve those periods of time. Like for me, it may not be as simple as like I'm really awful from 1 to 3, so I'm just not going to work from 1 to 3. Like I understand not everybody can do that, but if you can, you totally should. Go to the gym. I mean, just go do something that's going to refresh you a little bit. Like the days I've gone to the gym, I've come back and just killed the rest of the day. I mean, it's if you can do that, you should. But I would just encourage people that there's not one exact perfect way, like anything in programming or in this world even. There's not one like perfectly ideal way that's this is productivity and everything else is just kind of some sort of weird facsimile of that. Everybody's different, everybody's wired different, everyone's inclined different, so do whatever works the best for you.
Yeah.
In terms of getting work done, and if you can do that, there's no there's really nobody that can tell you that you're wrong. And like with anything, you just kind of continuously improve and keep looking for ways that you can steal a little bit of productivity away from unproductive time, and just tinker with it as you go, because like anything, it'll change over time too.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. Like the system that I have and the way I work right now is the result of trying so many different things before. And I probably wouldn't be doing it this way if I hadn't done all those other things. So It's like for me, for like the process I described earlier, it came from trying to do the Pomodoro technique exactly as it described, and then okay, well, let me switch to getting things done and see how that works, and then saying, well, I kind of liked these things, and I pieced together something, and so there's kind of a little bit of all of it involved in what I do today. So I don't want to say like, oh, I follow Kanban, or I do this, or I do that, because I don't really do any of them exactly, but I have molded them into something that actually helps me.
Right, so you do the Jeff.
Yeah, and I encourage you to do that too. So if something that I described how I work, and that sounds, hey, it sounds great, and you want to try it, and then you decide that, my method of limiting the number of things that I can work on doesn't work for you, that's fine. Like that works for me. It may not work for you. So just, adapt it to something that does work for you. Maybe you're fine with using online trackers where I'm not. Like, that's just a personal thing. Like I'll close the tab and never open it again, and then it's not going to help me any. So find something that helps you, and don't worry about what it's called or whatever. Just find something that works for you and roll with that.
Yeah, be around people, talk to people, get ideas. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
For sure. Usually you don't know what you don't know.
Sometimes, so.
Well, yeah, there's known
unknowns.
There's unknown unknowns as well.
Right.
That's a thing. Anyway, so I think that's a wrap for this episode. If you haven't seen already, we put out a T-shirt campaign. So
we did. That's super exciting.
You should definitely check that out. There's a link on our website. There's a little banner in the sidebar you can go to, looselycoupled.info. Just click it. Go check it out. It's a campaign. All the proceeds from that, the little proceeds that come out of that, they're going to go to supporting the podcast. So continue doing this. So we would definitely appreciate your support, and also we think they look pretty cool. So
and maybe some community stuff too.
Yeah, that's another thing that we're doing is trying to support the community. Like we are sponsoring the Lone Star PHP conference in April. Which we will also be there, both of us.
Doing this.
And we're going to record a podcast while we're there.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to announce that, but Jake's in the room, so if he has any problems with that...
Yeah, Jake will just tell us to shut up and we'll just cut it.
But too late because it's already in here.
We'll cut it in the post.
Yeah, we'll cut it in the post. But
you will.
So if you have a chance, come out to Lone Star. You should come out even if we weren't going to be there. But
yeah, no, you totally should.
But since we're going to be there, you should definitely come out. And we're going to be there, and then we'll probably be wearing our shirts at some point. I mean, I know I plan on it, so.
Yeah, I plan on wearing a shirt.
About Matt. You plan on wearing a shirt. Fantastic. Yeah. All right. So that
also,
is.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that the Lone Star guys are probably loving their free promotion that we give them for the conference. That really is a great conference, though. So yeah, to echo what Jeff said, we will be there. If that's not reason enough to come, know that it's a great conference.
Yes. I don't know if they like our promotion or not, but we're going to give it to them anyway.
You're taking it. You're going to like it.
Yeah, you're going to like this promotion. Yeah. Okay, so that, I think, should do it. That is episode 19 of Loosely Coupled Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Later.